What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video for the First Descendant, we're going to be looking at what I probably consider to be an off-meta build for AJAX. I've only recently started really enjoying AJAX a lot. I spend a lot of time with glass cannony characters, and so therefore that's generally where I do most of my gaming and actually, you know, progressing in the content in. And so AJAX has always been something that's off to my peripheral as more tanky and kind of like more the support kind of character. And while I don't mind those are not the mains that I usually enjoy. Now enter this version of AJAX, which is kind of like the best of both worlds for me when it comes to that, because essentially I'm marrying the idea of a hyper offensive glass cannon approach to what I do usually with my descendants, but I'm putting it on AJAX, who happens to be very sturdy and kind of like can still play in this support role while also now just really excelling at massive AoE damage. Let's have a look. So the idea here is obviously just going absolutely ham on Void Walk and Expulsion, which is essentially his second and third ability. And basically what I'm doing is I'm just using this to move around the battlefield super fast, and then when I have a bunch of enemies around me, I detonate and I pretty much blow them up. It's a very satisfying way of playing with the introduction of the 400% dungeons. Mobility has become a big thing where you have certain descendants that really excel at moving very fast through these areas. These are, let's say, the normal descendants that have always been good at this, like Bunny, and now of course Freyna as well. But we have certain other ones as well which can move through the area quite fast. Izumo is great for this as well, and so we kind of like have to have a build that can do that as well. Otherwise it kind of just sucks running after these guys the whole time while they get all the kills, and you kind of like are just a dude that's picking up all the loot in the background. Although I recognize that some people enjoy playing it that way. That being said, this build has no problem with either leading the pack, basically soaking up all of the heat at the front while your enemies die and explode from all of your AoEs while your teammates bring up the rear, or you can very much keep up with these super fast characters. Plus it's just a really fun way to play because there are certain traversals in the game that's only possible to use, so you can get over areas without having to grapple, or you can grapple, double jump, and yeah, it's just, the possibilities are endless. It's super fun, and if you haven't tried this yet, just for the sake of that, then it might just be the thing that makes you fall in love with basically how this works. But let's go ahead and build the character together. We'll go through the modules and everything that we need to be putting in here. I'll make some weapon recommendations for you. Generally speaking, there's only one weapon that really shines here, and I'm already holding it in my hands. We'll talk about reactors, we'll talk about external components, and then we're going to be done. So first things first, when it comes to the modules itself, what we have to do is we have to decide on a Transcendent mod. Now, I don't think that there's a case to be made for Void Charge being better than Void Explosion, or Void Explosion being superior to Void Charge. What I mean by that is that stats wise, there are some things which make one better than the other, depending on, of course, on which ability you favor, since Void Charge tends to favor obviously Void Walk more, and Void Explosion is more about Expulsion. Maybe I just move my face over here. But the main reason why I chose Void Explosion over Void Charge is simply due to the fact of the decision that it makes you make with your reactor. I'll show you what I mean. So if we put Void Charge on, this is going to change, or this is going to have Void Charge as a tech ability, and it's going to have Expulsion as a dimension ability. And there aren't any reactors that stack those two together. You get reactors that have non-attribute and tech, and then you have the reactors that have non-attribute and dimension. You don't get dimension and tech. So you're already kind of like splitting your damage up, even if it's just like a little bit. The bottom line is, for some reason, that just really irritated me, and I didn't enjoy the fact that that was. Now, the benefit that Void Charge does have, though, is you do earn some additional damage from stacking your defense. But since we are building kind of glass cannony and shit like that, in any case, it didn't really blow my hair back. So in this case, I ended up opting for Void Explosion. What Void Explosion does is it keeps both of these abilities on tech, which means you can go in deep on tech, and it's going to benefit both of these for you. Now, in terms of which abilities you should be using more over the other, basically the point is just that Void Walk has this cool enhancement effect here. Now, those of you that don't know how AJAX's let's call it ability, sequence works and how you should use it, the point is that you are using MP to cast these abilities, but these abilities also build something called void energy. And then when you have a full void energy bar at the bottom, then you trigger an additional effect with the next skill that you use that consumes that void energy. Now, the nice thing about Void Walk is when it consumes the void energy, you get a 16-second duration continuous shield recovery effect, which is really nice. And even though we are very glass cannon and everything, we do get some of our survivability from our external components or so, and this is just another thing that can also do that for you. The additional, how can I say, enhanced effect on void explosion is not that great. Basically, it enhances your sub attack, which is like, you know, your melee or whatever, and so that's not the one that so generally, if I have the presence of mind and if it's something that I'm looking out for, I try to make sure that Void Walk is the ability that I use to gain that effect, since this little bit of survivability makes, you know, some difference. So when it comes to both of these abilities, we will approach making them better in a three-pronged way. First of all, we want to drive their costs down if we can in any way or form. But what's also super important to us is we want to increase the range of these abilities, since this is an AoE 400% infiltration crusher build. We want to have those explosions reach out as far as possible and kill as many enemies as we can get in one hit. So range is really important for us, and we're going to focus on basically hitting the limit of our range with the modules that we choose. And then last but not least, cooldown is also super important, because both of these abilities don't have what I would call low cooldowns. You have a 2-stack cooldown on 10 seconds on Void Explosion, and you have a 20-second cooldown on Void Walk. And we want to bring those way down so that we can pretty much have them available to us when we want to use them, and not like when the cooldown is up. So we want to, if we want to use them to traverse, we want to do that. If we want to use them to do damage, we want to do that, but they need to be available. So let's go ahead and start maybe with, I guess, cooldown first. So in the case of cooldown, we want Nimble Fingers is the, I have terrible spelling. Nimble Fingers is our most direct approach to cooldown reduction. So we'll just slap that in there. That's a blue mod. It's kind of like a staple, and it's really good. Then we have MP Conversion, which is even a more powerful cooldown effect, although it gives you a slight MP penalty. We're going to circumvent this MP penalty by just making sure that we have the right external components. So we put that in there, and now already we can see that we've dropped the cooldowns down quite significantly. We have a 20 second down to 7.6 now on Void Walk, and we have a 10 second down to 3.8 seconds on our Void Explosion on the 2 stacks. So then what we can also do is we can also use the focus mods, right? So focus mods are really good because they also have a small cooldown reduction on them as well. And we can put 2 of these on. We can do focus on tech, which is over here. And of course, that's going to give us more tech skill power modifier, which is more damage for us, but it's going to give us that 6.1% skill cooldown. And then we can also focus on non-attribute. That's both of these done and dusted. And so now those 2 together give us an additional 12% of cooldown reduction, while also nicely giving us a little bump in the right direction in terms of damage. Now we have a 5.1 second Void Walk, and we have a 2.6 second Void Explosion, which is super snappy. The 2.6 seconds on Void Explosion is almost instant. Basically 2 seconds is instant, because it takes about 2 seconds almost for your portrait to refresh. So this is pretty good, and this is a very good place for us to, you know, rock and roll from. Then what we need to do is we need to get ourselves some range, right? So here we have some options. The most easiest approach, as always, is skill expansion. That gives us a nice flat 92.3% increase as well. And then we can also do maximize range, which again comes with all the maximize mods come with a slight penalty, but usually that penalty is outweighed by the insane, you know, addition that you get with the main stat. So here we get even more range than we get with skill expansion at 94.4, but we get a slight power, you know, nerf there again as well, but nothing too bad, because we're just gonna stack in even more. Now for the next 2 mods that we're going to put in, we're just going to go even more on damage. All right. And I don't think we have a lot of different options here, but the main point is this. If we look at our stats here, we can see that AJAX is not exactly rocking and rolling in the critical hit department, right? He's a very low base, 5%, and so even if you were to slap a couple of mods in there and everything and try to make this better, I think you're never going to get past 22, 24% or something like that, which really isn't that great. Although there is a point to be made that because you are making these massive AoEs and because these AoEs are hitting a lot of enemies at once, there is a chance that you will see some crits there and everything like that. And this is something that I'm looking into. But this version of the build performs so well for me that I am almost reluctant to waste more mods on building something that doesn't necessarily translate into something that's like meteorically bigger, but better. So that being said, he has a low crit hit rate and a low crit hit damage, which is why you haven't seen me build into any of those two directions. But that does mean then that we can use the amp mods to completely crush his critical hit damage, meaning that even if we do crit, the damage is going to be like limp noodle style, but we are going to push our damage to the next level. So again, with the amp, what we're going to do is we're going to go for our two damage types, which is non-attribute and tech, right? So the first one is we're going to do tech amp. You can see that this increases us by 61.3%, but obviously, as I said, completely murders our skill critical hit rate, right? And so then we are gonna go for non-attribute, and you can see here this completely kills our critical hit damage. So with these two mods on board now, we can see that basically our crit game has been nullified completely. But that being said, we're introducing quite a bit of additional damage to our build, which is obviously what the point is about. That means that we have two mod slots open, and as you can see, we haven't really done anything to just give us a little bit more survivability. So we're gonna do that. Simplest way to do that is just to give ourselves more HP. Barring certain conditions, and if you're trying to do something specific with a specific boss or an account or something like that, HP is just your best stat for survivability. And when we throw that in there, our survivability increases quite a bit. Now, last but not least, what I think works really well here is a little mod by the name of... let me just do this. Where is my bad boy? A little mod by the name of Multi-Talented. Now, the thing with Multi-Talented, and let me explain, because obviously Multi-Talented does a different thing depending on which skill you use to prime it. We are going to primarily be using tech, right? We're using our second and our third ability. Both of those are tech abilities. And so what we are going to be proccing is additional skill effect range and additional power modifier, which is what we're actually after. Of 15% for 5 seconds, and because we're constantly doing this, right, this effect will always be present, so it's just a nice little more damage on top, little cherry. The main point is we don't necessarily need this range that we're getting from here, and that actually overcaps us, as well as I actually have range on my reactor, which we're going to talk about just now, which further on overcaps us. So there is some optimization that can be done here. And we can, because we're using skill expansion and maximum range on our reactor, for example, multi-talented we're losing about half of the benefit that we're getting here because we don't really care about the range. However, if we were to use a reactor, for example, that doesn't use range, then this kind of like comes into play again, and then our reactor could have another beneficial stat for us. But more on that when we talk about the reactors. So if we just quickly review now, we're done. This is the whole shebang bang here. Go ahead and take a screenshot. Then basically what we're looking at is we're looking at super low cooldown, void walk and expulsion with maximum ranges at 18% on our void walk and 18%, Jesus. At 18 meters on our void walk and the same on our void explosion. So this is just, damn sexy. And obviously also bear in mind that Void Explosion has an enhanced damage effect if it's the last skill that you cast. So also bear that in mind. That's the only reason that you might want to use that above the enhanced effect of the shield. But I also feel like this just deals enough damage in any case because we combine it with a good weapon. So when we talk about the weapon, guys, it's got to be Secret Garden. It makes no sense to be anything else, and it's very simply because of the fact that the Secret Garden has a very, very good unique effect for us. When we look over here, we can see that there are two effects that the Secret Garden bring to the table. The one that we're interested in is the second effect, Tech, because this grants a unique ability called Pest Control. What that does is it has a 50% trigger rate, okay? It has a 10-second duration. It can stack up to 3 times. And what this does is it increases our firearm attack and it increases our skill power. And those stacks increase it even more. And so the rotation here is basically use your abilities a bunch of times and then laser something down with the gun, or shoot something with the gun and then, you know, use your abilities. But basically you're just alternating between them. Like I like to go like 2 or 3 cast, shoot, 2 or 3 cast, shoot, of course depending on if there is something to shoot. Normal trash dies immediately, so you don't have a problem with that. But yellow bars will sometimes have, you know, a little bit of, you know, extra juice, and they need to, you know, be dealt with. So in this case, what I'll do is I'll obviously, as you're cleaning up all the trash around them, you'll already be dealing damage to them. And then by the time, and you've probably seen that in the footage running in the background, by the time it's time to dance with these fools, then they have so little HP left that you can basically, you know, just explosion twice and then just, you know, shoot them with the secret guard. And that's just if you're playing solo. If you're in a team, just remember your teammates are also just going apeshit. So this is just a massive amount of AoE damage, and it works really well alongside other, let's say, Descendants that also debuff the enemies or gather them up or poison them or anything like that, because you're just basically lending to the chaos. I do want to just flash my Secret Garden build though, if that's something that you're interested in. But this is essentially how I have it set up. I have a separate video on Secret Garden on the channel if you want to have a little bit more nuance, a little bit more discussion on the reason behind all the mod choices. But the bottom line here is Secret Garden has an insane amount of critical hit rate and an insane amount of critical hit damage off the rack. And so we're just stacking more mods onto that to make that even better. And then I use something like Sweeping Squad, which basically just gives us a bunch of an increased firearm attack when enemies die. And so this is just a great way for us to just ramp up the damage even a little bit more. So this is the setup that I would advise for this exact thing. I do believe that other weapons can also work here. Thunder Cage is fine because, I mean, you're doing AoE. Let's just go ahead and do more AoE, you know, fuck it. And of course Enduring Legacy works on literally everything. But Secret Garden is just such a good fit, especially because of the way that we've built the character, that it kind of feels like it doesn't work with as good with anything else, and that you're actively playing it wrong if you don't play with that. All right, so then last 2 pieces of the puzzle here will be Reactor and external components. Reactor first. Materialized mechanics is your way to go because you want non-attribute. Let me move my face. You want non-attribute and you want tech. Your substats matter here, right? Because the thing is, as you can see, mine has skill effect range on and tech skill power boost. What I would love on here would be tech skill power boost and non-attribute skill power boost. I would really like that. That would be cool. Failing that, another cooldown on here would be even like sadder for the enemies. But skill effect range might be overkill here for me because I have so many other ways of already capping on that, and that's the point. So failing that, if you are pigeonholed into a reactor that has to have skill range on it, then you possibly have some other decisions to make with regards to the mods. That being said, of course, a ultimate reactor with these stats on would be even better, but then you are forced into a specific weapon. So once the reactor changes go live later in this week, we will be able to take a yellow reactor, or gold reactor, an ultimate reactor, and mod Secret Garden onto that shit, and then have the stats that we're looking for, and that's going to give us about like another 3,000 additional skill power, which is just going to be delicious. So the nukes are going to be even bigger. So yeah, good stuff. Then in terms of our external components, let's talk stats, right? This is at level 40, so I've got all of the bonuses that you get from leveling to 40. I'm just under 10k in terms of HP, and I have about 15,000 defense. That's more than enough for 400% dungeons. There's no case to be made where, unless you are standing dead still and not activating any of your abilities, that you will die. The only chance you have of dying with this build is jumping off the sides of the fucking mission. That's basically it. But on your components itself, Slayer is good because the thing is, it has this additional 26.1% skill power, which is yummy. The other stats are like not that great because it increases your skill cost a little bit, and then it gives you a little bit more rounds per magazine, but it also gives you general rounds capacity, which we're not using. So yeah, but we're really using it for that skill power point there. The other thing is, on your sensor, it is, I would say, relatively important for you to get max MP on there, as you can see here, and then MP recovery in combat is going to be really, really good for you. So if you don't have these, you might have situations where you are feeling that about halfway through killing like a 300 fucking monster pack, you are running out of mana and you're gonna have to run around and look for blue cubes and stuff like that. Look, by default, you're doing that in any case. There's, you know, like that's something that you're paying attention to do in any case, because you do burn a lot of MP with this. But then you're just gonna feel even more starved if you don't have max MP and MP recovery in combat. And in that case, I would consider switching out multi-talented for MP collector. But that's really the only time that I would do that. Once you have this on your pieces, I think you're good to go. And of course, all of the footage that you've been seeing that has been going on has been with this setup. And that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. Let me know if you also enjoy AJAX this way, or how you've built your AJAX up. I'm spending a lot more time now playing Descendants, a lot more that I didn't play before, because I'm obviously building those out, and in those ones I'm experimenting, like I said, with off meta choices or things that I just looks like fun or seems like fun or seems like a good idea, and then it actually ends up being a good one. Tow truck fucking Lepic, for example, which is just, I funnily enough then went and ran and found one of these dudes playing tow truck Lepic with me running this AJAX, which was hilarious because they kept up bunching them up and I would just like Super Mario jump them down. So, you know, delicious. But that's it. Thank you very much. As I said, and as always, it's just super important to me that you have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Till next video, fucking cheers.